With the invocation. Calvin, or I'm sorry, Lyle, if you'll join me first.
Good morning. Would you all please stand? I'm going to begin our invocation this morning with a quote from Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Imagine a large circle, and in the center of it, rays of light that spread out to the circumference. The light in the center is God. Each of us is a ray. The closer the rays are to the center, the closer the rays are to one another. The closer we live to God, the closer we're bound to our neighbor. The farther we are from God, the farther we are from one another. The more each ray departs from its center, the weaker it becomes. And the closer it gets to the center, the stronger it becomes. And let us pray. Dear Lord, guide us and all Rotarians in our work, both locally and across the globe. Strengthen our bonds of friendship and commitment to service above self. Let us continue to pursue the positive difference we can make throughout the world when we work together. Amen.
Well, Lyle, thank you for that special touch about global friendship and initiatives. We have a very, very, very special guest today. Let us start with the American Pledge with Steve Schmidt, and then we'll go into announcements.
Join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wolf, since you're up here closest to the mic, how about if I have you do the first announcement and talk a little bit about what we got done last week?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to thank everybody for all their contributions and participation in the Battle of Hard Road. This was a food drive as well as a football game between Dublin Scioto High School and Worthington Kilbourne. I can tell you that Scioto won the game in overtime 3-0 with a field goal. So it was a definite defensive battle. But anyhow, thanks for all your participation. You know, both schools won with the food drive. So thank you.
It was a very, very big focus and work on food last week. Let me just acknowledge, I have the flyer up here someplace. We had a beautiful turnout for the Bounty on the Bridge. And Barb, congratulations. You had a beautiful event. Rotary contributed 2 tables with Claudia's help. We got everything organized, and with your beautiful program, again, a great initiative for our community. Thank you, Barb.
And Roberta did the pictures, and they turned out great. Roberta.
Oh, and Roberta's pictures are amazing. If you guys get a chance, go on and take a look. Let me go on with the next announcement quickly is Dwight.
Hey, good morning. Do I don't need to do that. No.
Well, so the
Hey,
people at home can hear you.
What?
It's okay. It's okay.
Everybody can't hear you.
I just want to bring your attention to something. Dave's talked to you a little bit about this. He and I are splitting up some duties as it relates to some veterans projects that we're working on. We are supporting Resurrecting Lives Foundation. I know you've heard a little bit about them. The foundation advocates for veterans within their local communities and refers those veterans to hospitals and clinics who are suffering from PTSD, TBI, and the ultimate goal is to reduce the number of veteran suicides around the country, which are increasing at a staggering rate. So just to let you know, keep your eyes and ears open, please. You'll be hearing from us more about a project called Veterans Standing Together Across America. We're having a launch on November 1st, and that will be at the National Veterans Memorial Museum. And we'll be looking for donations and looking for some folks to join us at that unveiling. So that this piece of artwork will be the centerpiece for bringing people together around the awareness and prevention of veteran suicides. This artwork will be Ohio's. It's about 6 feet by 3 feet, and it has a frame around it which veterans and veteran families can sign. And so it's to bring awareness, but ultimately to raise funds for Resurrecting Lives Foundation.
Great, thank you, Dwight. Wonderful, wonderful project, you for the club and for the whole district. Let me just bring up Luke. I think that's our last announcement today. Sure. Luke, if you just mentioned something, and then we'll be going to introductions with our sergeant, and then we'll come to Tom Berry, our speaker.
Yeah, just briefly, our next social gathering is actually 2 weeks from today. It's a perfect party. Susan and Dave Ravenel offered to open up their home, and you as perfect guests will bring your drink of choice or an appetizer, I should say, and an appetizer or a dessert. And that's next Friday, October 6th. You would have seen an e-bite via the Roadrunner e-bite process. So hopefully you can all join the social committee and Susan and Dave opening their home and having a good social event. So that's next Friday.
Christine wanted to say something.
You announce it.
I'm going to say a couple things later to introduce our Japanese guests.
Right.
But I wanted to invite you all this Wednesday, September 27th, to a very first kickoff with our partners at Ohio University Dublin campus. We are launching a keynote speaker series, and what they do best up there is health and wellness, and so it's on Wednesday the 27th from 6:30 to 8, and it's on Aging Gracefully, called Living Longer, and there are flyers at the front reading desk, so I hope you all can come.
Well, thanks, Christine. And let me just say that one more time for our folks on Zoom, because Susan West actually is the one who brought the flyers last week.
Yay,
And we are still, thank you, Susan, we're still passing those out at the front table, again, for this Wednesday at Ohio University. And I think you said 5:30?
6:30 to 8.
6:30 to 8. Great, Christine, thank you. With that, I'll quickly move to our sergeant for kicking off the next part of the day.
Thank you. It's always nice to have such a warm welcome. I'm almost speechless, but in the sake of time, what we're going to do today, as far as we got guests, so let me do that. So I'll try my best at this. Kimura is a guest. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Don't know. Okay. But we also have Rhea and Garvin Waugh over here. So thank you. Any other guests I could have missed this morning? Okay, thank you. The small pot is $20, and the so they're fines. I forgot fines. So in the sake of time, $1. Guests do not have to pay. So everybody pay $1. And if you're short, we take credit. Okay. So anyhow, so we got the small pot at $20 and the large pot at $213. So, Ingrid, would you like to draw?
Sure. You said this is small pot?
Small pot 20.
Small pot. 8440.
8440. What is it? 8440. Right here. All right, you want a small pot or big pot? Yes. Large pot, okay. So we will now draw for the small pot, $20. Again, that ticket's going to be
8456.
8456.
8456.
Again.
Tom?
Okay, all right. And then I have the honor to be able to introduce Christine Nardecchia. She's kind of world famous, so known all over the parts of Ohio. So if you'd like to come forward, I don't have any bio or anything else, but Christine.
Thank you. I don't know about the world famous part, but I'm impressed you pronounced my name correctly. Thank you for welcoming me. I feel like I've been an honorary member for 25 years, which I celebrated 25 years with the city of Dublin. I told Andy not to say that because I have to tell people I was 11 when I started. But thank you for opening your club this morning to some very special guests we have been hosting. I would like to ask all of our Japanese guests from Japan to please stand and be welcomed by Dublin, Ohio Rotarians. Thank you. This is part of the Grassroots Summit, which is a long-standing relationship between Japan and the United States. 100 people from Japan arrived here Tuesday in Central Ohio and then split off among 10 Central Ohio communities to live for several days to really see what American life is about. And we, of course, are giving them the best experience of all in Dublin. Thank you to a couple of hosts who are here as well, the Waugh family. They have had full days from public art tours to our employee Olympics to meetings with our city council members. Today they'll be going to the schools, the police department, and they will even go to a Kaufman High School football game tonight, because what's more of an American experience than that? I'm sure there are some cultural shocking things, like serving yourself is a new thing, right? Buffets, but there is some cultural loveliness as well that we're all sharing. I particularly want to thank our city council for allowing us to sponsor this and welcome, and I'd like for Councilmember Keeler to say a couple of words about the importance of our Japanese community, which, by the way, we have the largest Japanese residential community in the state of Ohio. I'm not sure everyone realizes that, and Councilmember Keeler might be able to explain why.
Thank you. She stole one of my factoids, by the way, but that's okay. Before I welcome the Japanese community to our meeting this morning, I think we owe Christina a great deal of gratitude for all the work that she's done over the years to our club. I think when I joined in 2007, the project that new members had to do was the river cleanup.
Yeah.
And who you going to call if you have a volunteer opportunity in the city? It's Christine Nardecchia. My son is 17. He's looking to get involved. He said, "Dad, how do I get involved?" I said, "Call Christine Nardecchia."
I'll find him.
So thank you for all you've done for the city over the many years. So as I said, she did steal one of my factoids. Many of you probably aren't aware that there are over 22 Japanese-owned businesses in the city of Dublin. And as she mentioned, we are home to the largest population of Japanese in the state of Ohio. Pretty impressive numbers. It celebrates our diversity. I'd like to welcome the folks from, not only from Japan, but there are folks from around the country that have joined us. This is truly an economic development opportunity. Obviously, Marysville is home to Honda, but Dublin is home to many of the folks that work at Honda. So again, welcome, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay. Take care.
And thank you again. And to our Japanese guests, I will explain to you what all this means on our bus ride back to we're going to the Chamber of Commerce from here. So enjoy. They always do an educational presentation. And so today, I think Ingrid is going to introduce the educational speaker.
Thank you. No, very good. Christine again, just welcome and welcome to all of our guests. I hope you have a terrific experience while you're here and joining us in Dublin. Let me go ahead and start with an introduction of our speaker, because it's so much fun to actually introduce people who are passionate about what they do. When I asked Tom if he was giving us a PowerPoint presentation as part of his overview today, his first words were, "No, I'm speaking from the heart." And I think that that's what we're going to be anticipating for the rest of the meeting here. Tom actually started, as you will detect, perhaps a slight accent, not Japanese, but New Jersey. Tom is actually a retired attorney. He was a business developer and a fundraiser. His first guardian ad litem was for child abuse and neglect cases in New Jersey. He also consulted with the City of Chicago's Human Services Department, where he identified the needs and he obtained the funding for 162 homeless service providers, not just people, but service providers and projects and shelters in Chicago. And then in 2003, we were very fortunate. They took fundraising roles here in Columbus for Faith Mission, Lutheran Social Services, and he also assisted the Columbus Humane for 2 years as well to help with all their fundraising and administrative restructuring. And he retired in 2019 as the major gift organizer for Ohio Living Foundation. Tom has been a CASA Franklin County Guardian ad litem since 2012. He was just telling me about that this morning with his 11 years here. He's currently the board president for Friends of CASA for Franklin County. Tom, would you please come forward and tell us a little bit about CASA and what your organization does? Thank you for being here.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ingrid. I was sharing with Ingrid, this is very personal to me, as she mentioned also. I'm working this morning on a case with a 15-year-old girl who was about to be trafficked for sexuality, and working with the Dayton Police, and actually we're working on that this morning, so if I get a text, I may have to excuse myself. But she's doing well now. The Dayton Police were able to help us recover her from a minister's home with another 15-year-old daughter that we're in the process of getting her trafficked. I'll leave it at that. But, and I just wanted to share with you, as you mentioned about Chicago, you reminded me, one of the things, my avocation was working with the homeless around the country, both as an attorney in New Jersey, volunteering, St. Louis, Chicago, when I was in business rebuilding markets on the West Coast and all. And one thing that really stuck with me is to learn that in Chicago, when I was there, on average there were 5,000 children in homeless shelters when school started. And the school system itself would bus them to their regular school. And what we did through an organization I worked with, we worked with the Chicago Sun-Times to raise backpacks. JanSport donated about 5,000 backpacks a year, and school supplies, so that these children, when they went to school, didn't have like nothing or a pen and pencil. And you can imagine how others would look at them, you know, if they walked in with nothing. So we did, and we had volunteers come in, and we would do like 5 different grade levels of supplies in these backpacks. But it really impressed on me, you know, when you see adults who are homeless and you talk to them, you work with them, but the impact on children is incredible. I mean, it's something that you just need to understand and appreciate. We had one family with a mother with 10 children. When she was when she became homeless with her children, the emergency shelters could only take so many of the children with her. So the children are actually in 4 different shelters for a while until this was worked out. So that impact on those children was incredible. When I had an opportunity as a young lawyer in 1974 in New Jersey to be guardian ad litem, I looked forward to doing that. I really appreciated that opportunity. And where I'm coming from is I've never been for want. My dad, I was in 4 different grade schools, 2 high schools with my dad's job around the country. But we never, for lack of shelter, clothing, food, whatever. So until I saw this firsthand, I didn't realize the impact it could have on these children. And so I wanted to share with you that when I'm on the board of Friends of CASA. I actually just stepped down as president. We have a new president starting this past August. But CASA of Franklin County was a nonprofit that it was arranged that in 2020, this was arranged before COVID, that the 11 staff, which are caseworkers and attorneys, would become part of county government. Part of the reason was they get much better benefits as being a county employee. So the nonprofit itself became Friends of CASA to raise money to help train close to 300 volunteers like myself that are volunteer guardians ad litem and some other volunteer positions. So since that date, we've worked, you know, to help train. We have initial training that used to be 30 hours, now it's 45 hours. And we're in the process today and yesterday, it was on the news, of getting our 12 hours of additional training annually, you know, and we'll learn about some of the new needs that these children have, some related to the pandemic, the issue of being home with your parents, let's say, for quite a bit, not going to school. I think national studies are showing that the pandemic had a negative impact on learning in many ways. So, but I just want to share with you one thing that's important. Part of the reason I'm here is not to ask for money, but we can always take some. Part of the reason I'm here is to recruit. Last year, CASA Franklin County, we were the guardians ad litem for about 682 children. And last year, 80 new volunteers were sworn in by the court to be guardians ad litem. That's changed this year, twofold. One, we anticipate having a record over 800 children that will be guardian ad litem for, that will come into the system through the juvenile courts, and they will need a guardian ad litem volunteer. The concern, though, is that we've only been able to recruit 40 new guardians ad litem. So that's half of what we had last year, but we're getting even more children. So just to share with you, if you have the time to consider it, on your tables and at the front, I understand, there's a flyer that has information on what we do, how we do it, and the impact that you can have on these children. Since being a guardian ad litem for 11 years, I've experienced, a lot of the things you'll see on there where you see, near the bottom, at the very bottom, a child with the CASA volunteer is less likely to abuse substances, commit child abuse as an adult, commit violent crimes, repeat grades, and become incarcerated. I can share with you over the course of 11 years that I think there's been children who have been impacted, not just by me, but by the caseworker, the system, therapists, counselors, once they're in this system, that you can tell they were maybe on a path to that. I have a young man now, 14, who was arrested in Newark in a foster home for trying to steal a Kia. We're going to court on Monday regarding his case. His parents are totally out of the picture. They don't want to work to get him back. So we have a good foster home that he's been in. So we're working on that. But the issues and things you hear about here, I've almost experienced that with every child, every different child that I work with. But I just want to share with you that it's been a gift to me. Honestly, again, for not having issues myself as a child, to be able to help these children has really been a gift to me, and I think I've grown as a person. I truly want to say that. I know with the information that you have, if you'd like, you can see a little bit more detail about what this is involved. I was doing most of it, as you know, when I was still working, so I had the time to help these children. The minimum is you visit with the child like once a month, but we're his voice, his advocate in court. And there are actually times where the magistrates will look more to us than they will the caseworker. As in life, everyone is low in staff, and the caseworkers have more and more cases themselves. And there was one time a few years ago where a mother who was a drug dealer in Hilltop didn't want to get involved in a case. When she had to come to court, we had a sheriff's deputy in the courtroom because she would bring someone with her. It was just a mess. And these 4 children, the oldest went AWOL from a foster home. I would stay in touch with him. He wouldn't let me know where he was, but I let him know, even though we're not supposed to drive them anyplace, if you're stuck someplace, you need help, call me, and I would take him to the children's services or to a police station, let's say. But it turns out the caseworker felt that the grandmother who we did a home study with, she wanted to take over custody of the children because the mother didn't want them anymore. And the caseworker was upset that the caseworker felt the grandmother was lying to him about helping this child out while it was AWOL. And it turns out he would show up and she'd give him some food and he would just take off again. She tried to get him to come in, but he wouldn't. But it's family. You're not going to feed your grandchildren. So we felt that when we did a home study and all that was the best place for the children. And there were 3 others in addition to this one. Bottom line is the caseworker said in court, we're against this. We think these should go out for adoption, blah, blah, blah. And I remember testifying, and it was the first time I started getting emotional because we really believed that this was what was best for the kids. This ended back in 2019. We're not allowed to get in touch with the children after the case is over, but they can get in touch with us. And all 4 children have. You know, they've texted me, they've messengered me. The older boy who was AWOL graduated from high school, got a job, has his license, considering going to technical school. So it worked out well. But there are cases like that. I just want to share one with you that really, where you can show that we work as a team. One of the cases I have, a young man, 9 years old, is on the autism spectrum. Sadly, both his parents did drugs, had drug issues, and his mother was living with a boyfriend that, I'll say this word once, I'm not supposed to in public, but the boyfriend called him retard. So I'll use the R word going forward, but I want you to see the impact on this child. 9 years old being called that and told because there were communication issues, where the boyfriend, James, would call him and say to him, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to take you to the basement and I'm going to hang you by your throat. We heard those words from a cousin who lived in the home with him that told, when they were all removed for appropriate reasons, an 11-year-old cousin told the foster dad that that's what James would call Roger, was his name, many times. And this is a little miracle here. The foster dad called me to say the cousin had said this to him to make me aware of it as his guardian ad litem. I called the foster mom where Roger was, and she says, I was about to call you. I have to tell you this story. He says, yesterday, I heard Roger was in a room with bunk beds, but he was there by himself. He was the only foster boy in that room. I heard this banging in the room. So I went up, I knocked on the door, said, Roger, no answer. Knocked again, Roger, no answer. So I opened the door, I walked in, and Roger's banging on the bedroom window. And I said, Roger, what are you doing? And he kind of shook his head like he was coming out of a dream. And he said, oh, I'm closing the window. And she said, Roger, it's already closed. And Roger went, oh, yeah. So as she was trying to figure all this out, she noticed that this is during COVID in 2020. He had his Chromebook for school on his desk and a desk chair. He had a folding chair next to him. He'd have some sports stuff on. And what he had done is he had taken the folding chair, took all the shoelaces out of his sneakers and his shoes, made a rope, and he hung, it's hard to talk about this, he hung the folding chair from the top rail of the bunk. And, you know, so she started to talk to him, and he said, no, I had a dream. I had a dream. He says, okay, let's talk. So we talked, his therapist, his counselor was working with him through NIAP, and he told us that that's what's called a trauma reenactment, that some of these children go through such trauma that they start to recall it when they feel more comfortable. So he's in a home, he's sleeping in his bottom bunk, and maybe it's through a dream or whatever. We know, obviously, that he was not hung in the basement, but what we believe is that his boyfriend James, in the past, when he felt Roger wasn't listening to him, he would put him in the basement, lock the door, and Roger's probably down there banging on that basement window, thinking he's going to be hung. So the point is, he's gotten really good help. That's what I said, as a team. The therapist has helped him, the foster mom was great. He's now placed with a family member doing really well. They sent me pictures of him. He was at a Blue Jackets training, learning how to ice skate, and he won an award. He got a street hockey stick and a Blue Jackets ball. And but you know, once in a while they'll send me pictures. He's really doing well. But again, it's that full team. What also helped me is other guardians ad litem and staff that helped me understand how to communicate with him. If you met him, you wouldn't know he's autistic. But if you start to talk to him and all, you can sense, you know, you need to better be able to communicate with him. So that helped me tremendously. But I wanted to share that with you because it does take a team. Like they say, it takes a village. And while I appreciate this individually, I really respect the people that I volunteer with, that we work with, my supervisor, who's one of the attorneys at CASA, and you know, and others who have also helped us, you know, therapists and counselors and all. But you know, again, the reason I'm here is I'd like you to think about possibly, you know, volunteering, whether actually as an actual guardian ad litem, And as you can see, having close to 800, if not more, children by the end of the year, things aren't getting better. I think the more we've learned about, the impact of the pandemic on a number of children, and the delay now in their education and so on, that we do need your help, and you can help us help them. And the other thing is, studies showing just in Ohio that the reason we don't have as many guardian ad litem volunteers is because families are still catching up after COVID, after the pandemic. And they've said that to us. I want to do this, but we're still catching up here and doing this and that. So I really don't want to take too much time. Being from New York, actually, the Bronx, I could talk here till 10 o'clock, but, and Dawn knows that, right, Dawn? So, no, I just really
Tom,
want to.
how about if we take some questions?
I'd love to.
Let me start with the first one. I know Christine, Jean, a few of us, we've talked about some of everyone's passion around doing some things. How many cases do you have? How much volunteer commitment is it? Start us off understanding a little bit what you recommend people think about as a commitment.
It depends. You can actually, the most cases you can take under like Ohio law is 5. That's not number of children, that's number of cases. My first case was, when I started, I asked if I could to be a guardian ad litem for teenage boys, 14, 15, 16, 17. I actually have one who turned 18 and went to an incredible program in Ohio called Bridges, where you get help after you become an adult. But no, to answer your question, and my second case though was 7 children from 2012 to 2018, only neglect, no abuse, no sexual abuse, physical abuse or anything. And we thought the mom would do better because 2 of the fathers, or 3 fathers, took custody and placement of their 2 daughters. But at the very end of the case, she had twins. So we're back to 7. And, I got that case back in 2021. And that's one is a 15-year-old girl that we're talking about. When I met her, she was 5. How long ago? And now she's in a situation where she was about to be trafficked. No, you can have, as you start especially, you can have 1 case, 1 child. Interesting that now that I'm retired, I am available to take on more cases. Some very urgent, like let's say at the last minute. But very, very honestly, to be a good guardian ad litem, you need to have that quality of time that you feel you can place and do, to help these children. But again, that's why the more guardians ad litem we have, the better. And we have a group, peer training team that helps you better understand certain types of issues. And we also talk to each other because it is emotional. You come away after a visit, and by the way, I'll share this with you, and I'm sorry that I know there's more questions. See Kids Dream is a nonprofit that helps 4th and 5th graders see what they want to do beyond school. Oddly enough, at an OSU event where all these nonprofits, animal related and people and all, 4th and 5th graders came back and they asked them, says, we'd like to interview and learn more about child abuse. So I've been interviewed by 9 4th and 5th grade classes in Columbus, different schools, about this. The first time was by Zoom, it was a couple of years ago. I was scared. At age 10 and 11, I knew nothing about what I'm about to talk about. But I learned quickly that kids today, 4th and 5th grades, with social media and everything else, they know a lot more about the world, good and bad, than I did at that age. And but what was fascinating is that they want to learn, and they come away, they ask good questions. They ask me, what's the best thing about what you do as a volunteer? And I say, it's when we get to place a child back with family, the family's gotten the help, or with a loved one, or in a good position. And they said, what's the worst thing about what you do? And I said, honestly, it's, you get to know these children as you work with them, and you hope they trust you. And if you get to a point where mom, let's say, or dad are working their case plan, but there's a relapse. So the worst thing is actually to go to visit with that child and say, by the way, need to let you know mom relapsed, she's back in the hospital. And, so things aren't working as you hoped they would. Sorry about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'd love to open it up for questions. You mentioned some training that you have organized. Is there a date or a time that volunteers would have to be in touch with you by, or what would you like to see there?
Yeah, that's on our website. I'm not sure when the next training is. Staff would know that. I can find that out for you, and I'll let Jean know when the next one might be. A lot of it's virtual, when I did it back in 2012, it was in person at the courthouse. A lot of it is virtual now, and Friends of CASA just paid to put on a platform that the county bought for all county employees. Franklin University is helping us to put together training online. You don't have to be a set time. You can do it the way it's set up, and you record what you've done and so on. So it is, again, it's a commitment of 45 hours to train and then 12 hours each year. Again, the need is there, and if you feel you might be interested in helping any of these children out, there's more information on the flyers, and I know there's some flyers out front too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd like folks to make sure, Tom's got pens and clips and flyers here for us. Make sure that you're taking the flyers here, and we've got plenty more out front that Tom also brought. Tom, what else would you like us to know about how to get started? Is going on the website the best way?
Yes, if you go to the website, and there was 3 staff that help answer any questions you might have. So, and if any questions come up even afterwards, I'd be more than happy to help answer those. Gene knows how to get in touch with me.
How often do you end up in court with these kids? I mean, is this an ongoing thing or just usually once?
It can be ongoing. The way the law is set up, I'm going to Zoom, and a lot of it's been Zoom, obviously, since pandemic. Now it's back to some in person. I have a Zoom hearing Friday morning on a young man who he's the one that had stolen that Kia, but both his parents have been out of it for over 2 years. The cases last 2 years, and at some point after that 2-year period, we hope the children are placed, or they become in permanent custody of Children's Services, and then they're placed for adoption. So it's a 2-year time frame, but a lot of the hearings are still Zoom when they have them, and in another case, we'll have an in-person hearing to give both parents the opportunity to see if they still don't care enough to want to have custody of their children after the 2-year period. Yes, sir.
I'm fairly familiar with CASA mostly because of an organization, Community Shares, which you were a member of.
Right.
All these court cases are family court, correct? You're not going with the kids necessarily to juvenile court.
No, they're all family court. The only case I have had with juvenile court is a young man that tried to steal a Kia in Newark. We had juvenile court in Newark by Zoom and in person, because technically he's a resident of Franklin County because it's Franklin County Children's Services case. So he'll get his punishment, so to speak, in another 2 weeks, and that'll be in person. But he's done well. He was incarcerated because of this for 70 days. Newark didn't want to release him, and there's issues about how long, the impact of having a child, as with adults being incarcerated. In Franklin County, not just because of space, they'll release children back to a foster home until pending, let's say sentencing. But in Newark, they kept him for 70 days. So they're saying that actually has a negative impact on children especially. You're in that environment for 70 days or longer. When you come out, where are you going to go? Are you going to go to the straight and narrow, or are you going to go with somebody you met that's older telling you, hey, when you come out, this is what we're going to do. We'll steal another Kia, and there's groups that are doing that. So, sorry. Yes.
How does a child get referred?
It depends. That can be through a neighbor. It can be through the police department. It can be almost anyone. We're required reporters.
Yeah.
In fact, I heard something about another child that I looked into, and we couldn't reach the parents. She was in a different home, but her grandfather had called me because he was aware. So I called Children's Services, and they do a half-hour interview, and then they go check on it. And she's now in a foster home. But to answer your question, the case I had with Roger, they were evicted. These kids were living in a garage with the mother, the boyfriend, and a grandmother, and they were sleeping on the floor of a garage. Good that a neighbor contacted the police saying, hey, there's kids and families sleeping in this garage, and it's November. So the police came out when they saw the situation. They knew what to do. They called Children's Services. That's when the kids became part of the system.
Thank you.
Yes.
How many of the children after the 2-year period actually get adopted?
that's a good question. I don't know the full number, but you know what's interesting? I don't know if I'm blessed or whatever, but there's been no issues with the children I've worked with. And last year I actually had a total of 14 that I was guardian ad litem for. Beginning of this year was 11, but we were on a path towards, good placement for them. The cousins, Roger is now with a family member. His cousins, the 4 cousins, beautiful young kids. 2 were adopted by a great foster home. 1 was adopted by an aunt, and the other is in a foster home he's doing incredibly well with, school-wise, sports-wise. His mom keeps relapsing, so this foster dad is going to adopt him. But to answer your question, I don't know. The one young man that we got into Bridges, I only became his guardian ad litem when he was 16. He had been in foster care from age 5 to age 18, 13 years in different foster homes, and now he's doing well. But he was up for adoption while he was in that foster home because the parents were out of the picture for more than a few years. So I don't know that actually answer, but the good thing is we really try to find the right place for that child. And I can tell you, in 11 years now, in November, it'll be 11 years, I've not gone to sleep wondering about any one child if they're in the right place. And I think it's everyone working together. Again, it's not me, it's all of us working together to do what's best for that child.
I'm very confident that the kids that are going, that are entering into your program by the time they're 15 are not getting adopted. They're going to be 17 or so at the, hopefully by the time their situation is figured out, after 18 you don't get adopted. Therefore, there are programs also for foster children who are coming out at 18 of the foster system who have nowhere to go.
No, we're in training now, the last 3 days over at the Hyatt Convention Center. And I was in a class yesterday because I'm familiar with Bridges, but you're absolutely right. The key is that you start working early with that child. And in Ohio, they want you to start working on it, 180 days before that child turns 18, and another report at 30 days. Because a lot of these kids that come off the street, some of the kids I had, they were the ones with the drug dealing mother. She was having them deliver drugs and getting a tip at age 9 and 10. But the point is, that's a very good point, because what we do is starting to work with them, because kids will say, I can't wait to turn 18, I'm out of here, I don't need to be here. But when you start sharing with them that, if you get a job and start working 20 hours, Bridges requires 20 hours a week working, get your education. What will happen with Bridges is you can stay in that good foster home after age 18, and Bridges will pay like a rent for you. So no, you're absolutely right, but the whole idea is to start early enough so before someone just turns 18, because they'll say, I don't want this, but when they realize they can get some money and save it, they can spend some of it, they can have a place to stay until they find what they want. So the idea is, and it was a great training yesterday too, the key is communication starting early.
I think we had one last question from Jean.
Yeah, so if you're unable to start the training now, are there other ways you can volunteer and support the work?
Yes, there are, and honestly, I wish I had staff here with me. I was going to have staff here with me, one person, but they're all in training, so they couldn't be here today. That's a great question, Gene, and I'll do a little bit more background based upon the questions that were asked and send it to you by email.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then I'll forward it out to the club.
Great. No, believe me, any more questions you have, just let Gene know, and I'll get the answers for you. But again, if there's anything you feel you can help us with, again, with your volunteering, we'd love to see that. So, thank you.
Tom, thanks for being here. I have a feeling I'm being recruited, not sure. Tom, thank you again for being here. That is terrific. I will say that our speaker next week is Tom Holton with Clay Rose. And they're going to be talking about, obviously, the Dublin Historic Association. Tom, by the way, was the founder of Leadership Dublin, I believe. And he'll be able to talk about that and a few questions as well. The last quote for this week, the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. M.R. Wallace. Thanks again to our wonderful guests. There's plenty of extra food. Please stay and talk a little bit with Tom and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.